Subscribe to my YouTube channel and click the bell icon for the latest film interviews, features, and recommendations on the movies that matter.
Raj, Nidimoru, Krishna, DK, I would start by asking you how you're holding up and what you're doing in lockdown. But the truth is that I do know, actually, you guys have just completed a series, a micro series is what you're calling, which was shot under lockdown. Tell us more. This is very exciting.
Well, the first week was quite restless and anxious, like everybody else, was thinking what's going on. So then we were thinking what we should be doing something, because we had an idea before to do a certain indie projects, independent projects before. But then now this gave more restrictions, and it reminded us of when we were starting out as filmmakers, when we had nothing, just DK and me shooting a short film in an apartment complex at middle of the night, so we don't wake people up.
Right.
So it started off that way, and then I realized that why not do a series than a short film. I have reasons for it, and so I was talking to Shreya Dhanwanthary. She's a brilliant actress from The Family Man, and I saw all these actors holed up at home, and they were even worse off because they had no work to do. We at least could write and prepare and all that, edit and all those things. So I said, why don't you write a lot? She's a published author. So I said, why don't you write this idea of an isolation series set in isolation? And it started off from there as to logistics and how do you do it? How do you pull it off? How do people record? All that stuff.
Actually, somewhere around last year, towards the end of last year, towards the end of last year, we had this little, we were in the process of doing this little initiative, like a division in our existing company, where we encourage these newcomers, filmmakers, fresh filmmakers who have these good ideas, but it's very fresh and it's commercially untested kind of a thing. So we started this initiative. We had this idea we'll call it D2R Indies. We thought we'd do a division like D2R Indie, where we make all these really small films without really being concerned about how will you release it, or will it make money, and all those considerations. So it's like just an idea, a little bit of resources, and do it. That's where we started last year. In fact, there is one other film that's actually finished shooting towards early this year, and it's in the edit. And so it was already a thought that was forming, but given this lockdown, suddenly the restrictions became that much more. Like people can't even step out of their homes. So that's where this new micro series idea came up.
So why is it called a micro series, and how does one work around the situation? I mean, you've got actors. You're saying you've got actors in it. What can we expect?
Basically, it's too tough to create a feature out of it, at least in the first effort, or a full-fledged series out of it. So I was talking to Shreya and said, why don't we think of an idea where each episode is under 10 minutes? The idea is to still maintain it like a series. So because I think our psyche right now is more geared towards series than shorts have been tough to consume for a while. And, I know it's one of those thankless products in terms of we put so much effort to make a short film. It's so hard to get people into it. So I was thinking, why not do like a 6 to 8 episode series? So it started off that way, let's do an 8 episode, under 10 minutes. So I don't know what mini was already there. So I thought micro would be smaller.
Yeah. We could have chosen to call it nano series also, but yeah. Once we start doing 1 minute episodes, we'll call it nano, I think.
No, but the idea is that it's doable. It's You can put your hands around it. And she's a first time filmmaker. And now all the actors are empowered to direct themselves, really. You can only say so much on Zoom calls and Skype calls. At the end of it, each actor was told how to shoot with their own phones. So now your quality is dependent on their phones. So we couldn't drop an actor saying, oh, you don't have an iPhone? Sorry, we can't cast you, right? So we had to go with iPhone, Samsung, Oppo's, whatever they had, and kind of went with the character. So the logistics is what is more tough to deal with, especially the interactions. And we didn't want to go for tricks, where I talk to you, I give you a mug and you take a mug out. Didn't want to go into that because lots of cool stuff has been made already. This was just purely acting and putting out a little story where you're watching episode after episode.
Right.
And it acknowledges the lockdown. It's not that it's not that we are trying to say these are normal times and we're making this particular series. This acknowledges the lockdown.
Right.
Yeah.
In fact, that's a good question because I would imagine that most of what is made, I mean, that anyone makes during lockdown will kind of have to weave that into the narrative, right?
Right.
I mean, you're talking about this being an initiative, DK. You were telling me that this is an initiative you are doing. There are more sort of series in micro series in the pipeline. Will they all then use lockdown? I mean, will that have to be a part of the narrative? And is this the only way to do it?
Actually, no. That's what I mean. One, yes, the first batch, right, in lockdown, everybody's thinking lockdown, virus. So it makes sense for the first set, or in our case, let's say the first thing that comes out, we acknowledge it's a lockdown and we weave a story that says, okay, here are these people suddenly caught in a lockdown and here's the story. It still makes sense. But the ones that we are planning to do after this will break away from that. I mean, it's something that's a story by itself without acknowledging a lockdown. But what we are considering is the logistics of shooting it is easy enough to shoot without a lot of people getting together and doing a lot of stuff.
There are a few things you could do with the lockdown background,
Right.
but you'll soon run out of those. The idea is, the trickery, or like, everybody's on Skype and talking to each other. Then it goes to two people locked down in the same place, or two complete strangers are locked down in a strange place and they can't get out.
Of that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, variations of that. Once you go beyond it, now they were thinking the next step. Maybe after the first couple of micro series, we thought we'll move on to something else. Hopefully, we'll have a few more resources in hand where we are allowed to meet another person. Right now, this whole series was done without one person ever meeting the other person, including the post. So it was quite challenging to pull that part out. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So we had this. I mean, like speaking of the lockdown, we had this joke when we were in the States making our first films. Like the first film of every Indian in America used to be Coming to America.
Correct.
Right. So we were like, okay, you can get away with one film like that. After that, you have to do something else.
Right.
But now I think that applies for the lockdown. You can make one film about lockdown. After that, you got to do beyond that.
Right. So what is this story? What can we expect from this series? Tell us a little about this series. You've said it's been written and directed by Shreya. This is
yes.
who plays Zoya in The Family Man.
Right.
But what is the series about? How does it use the lockdown scenario?
Sure. So it's basically about we're putting a teaser out today or tomorrow, and it's about the fact that there was a girl who was about to get married, and then the prime minister's speech comes in, and everything is shut down. So basically, you can get out, and you don't want to get out. You don't want to break the rules. So everybody's stuck in their houses, and the wedding has to happen, or it was about to happen. So they can't, and now they come up with an idea that why don't we do shadi online?
Right.
Why don't we do so? It's called a viral wedding. So it's about figuring this out with the most meager things you have at home. It's not like you're prepared. You don't have all the stuff with you to get married to, and also the problems that come with it. The problem, and there's parents, there's a friend, there's a brother. So a bunch of family is figuring out how to get this done. It has Shreya Dhanwanthary, it has Sunny Hinduja, who's also in The Family Man. It also has Sharib, who's
Sharib
also
Hashmi.
in The Family Man, and a few others. And it's been put together by Shreya Dhanwanthary and Pratha Narang. They're all first-time filmmakers, So they pull the resources, call people up and said, hey, can you do a poster for me? And he's like, I don't have the machine, it's at office. So what can you do with what you have?
Right.
And internet speeds and sound design is like on your laptop. So everything is done extremely. I think this is the most minimal resources anybody can have to make a product.
Right. Now, y'all are, of course, the creators of this. Y'all are presenting the project. How are we going to be able to watch this? What is the model for making sure that this is viewed? Is it going to go on YouTube? Is there a platform release? What is the plan and what can we expect?
Yeah, initially we thought it would be YouTube and stuff. We didn't have a plan. It was more of like how all independent films are made. You just make it and then figure out what to do with it.
Correct.
So, but then there was quite a bit of interest from everybody on this, once I put it out. So I realized, oh, this can actually go on a good platform and things like that. So we are in talks with a couple of platforms and should be able to announce it today or tomorrow.
Okay.
Probably tomorrow we should have where it's going to go.
Right. Does this in some ways sort of remind you guys of your own, indie roots? Because you are, of course, the guys who came in and started with, was it ABCD and then Flavors, and y'all were the the Indian Americans returned, making your indie films. Is this a sort of back to the roots kind of initiative?
It is. It is very much. It's very much that in a lot of ways. Like a first film also. Like I would be lying if I didn't say technology played a big role in it.
Yeah.
Because this was around like whatever a while back, and we always thought that if we had been born like 10 years earlier or started to do this 10 years earlier, we would not have been able to do it, because making a film was very, very hard with film cameras and crews and stuff. But right about the time when we started making our first film in America and all that was the revolution of the digital cameras and in a lot of ways the internet. So suddenly you could buy a camera for cheap enough and shoot a high resolution film, and you could edit it on your computers at home. All of that was happening around that time. So I think we've leaned heavily on technology at that time, and that's exactly what we're doing now. If the lockdown had happened 15 years ago, I don't think, again, we would be able to make a show like this, because nobody has cameras. Nobody has cameras worth anything, right?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it is. And I keep giving them anecdotes from how we did it, and, kind of want them to figure out a few things themselves, so that I'm there, mentoring throughout and doing whatever we can, pulling out resources, calling a friend and saying, can you make music? And called Mahesh Shankar, our long-term music composer.
He also
friend.
scored the music for our very first film, that independent film, Flavors, like you said. He scored the music for that film. He scored for a few in between, and now he scored for this one. So
yeah, like I said, when DK and I made our first couple of experiments with this, at that time we were really just the two of us. I mean, DK would hold the camera, and we stole a shopping cart from a mall, put it in the back of the car, got it, cut it open. I mean, we wanted to return it later, and DK would sit in it.
Right.
And, I'm actually pushing it at dolly because we wanted dolly moves even on the first one. So it's just us. And then when it's done, we go back, hold the mic, we hold the clapboard, do it ourselves, action, and then we hold it and do it all. That's how we teach ourselves how to do sound, how to do Foley, how to do editing, and all kinds of stuff. So that was fun, keep remember, and we look back at it as the original passion with which we started filmmaking with. We always go back to that. Every time we make a film, sometimes a movie goes wrong, then you think back, where did we start? Let's come back to it. Let's see what the passion is, bring it back in, challenge ourselves. So now with this, we are constantly in touch with younger, aspiring filmmakers with the same enthusiasm, energies, and so it's just it's an exciting process. I mean, we've been through two of them with two different sets of filmmakers. So yeah.
Is this a zero budget project then? Is this literally a zero budget series?
It's never zero, right? There's always everything is for back end, because people do put their time and effort, and there's maybe a little bit of expense that goes into it. But yes, some people they're still actors. They're actors who get paid for their time, and they're editors and the music composer. They're all people who get paid for this work otherwise. Yes, they have put in work now without getting paid, but they need to get paid, I think. Yeah.
Right. They're all willing to do it free. They're all willing to put in their efforts, and then the idea was that once we sell it, we can pay everybody.
Right. How is this going to look different from the multitude of TikTok videos that are being created every day? I mean, is this going to look like a scrappy little thing? And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, of course, you're using, the fact that one is using personal phones to shoot these. How is this going to look like a professional product, or is that not important? Does the sort of story allow you to let this look like something that's quite scrappy and homemade in a sense?
Yeah. So let me
Nika, go
answer.
ahead.
Yeah. I mean, we've long realized, and but I mean, it's not always the case. But I realized that when your writing is good and the acting is good, a lot of times the rest of it just becomes you just do the what's necessary to do it kind of a thing. So I wouldn't say this is extremely well shot or extremely well designed, but it's good enough. But what carries it is just the writing and the actors. That's what makes it look very professional. Like I mean, you could watch a lot of these Sundance films where with the bare minimum resources, just because of good acting, it suddenly looks like a very good film. And you're comparing with the best of the biggies out there. So in a lot of ways, this is also that. And I mean, I was pleasantly surprised when I saw the first cut because these are really good actors, and you're surprised how much a good actor can pull you into a story if everything else is just average.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I have to ask finally before we go, what happens to your own projects, to your own filmmaking? I mean, you'll of course finished shooting Family Man season 2. Is this a time that one is able to work on post-production remotely? I know that there were various films in under different stages of production. What happens to all of that? What happens to the to the full-fledged projects, if you like? And how soon do you think one can return to those?
Right now, Family Man, we finished shooting, and the editing is on. And luckily for us, the editor is editing at home, and we are using WeTransfer and everything to watch it, give feedback, and all these video conferencing calls to get that process going. So by the time this lockdown is over, actually our edit will be ready. The only thing we will need now more resources is to do the finishing part of it, which would be the sound mixing and the grading and stuff like that. And also once the lockdown lifts, I think those are not going to be a problem because see, it's still controlled environment. Even if there's a partial opening, they'll say, okay, you can open your studio as long as only 50% of employees or social distancing and all that. So finishing this film may not be so much of a problem. The biggest hurdle I think everybody's going to face is any new shoots that have to start, because that's where 100 people need to get together. So that's where even our own upcoming projects that were in pre-production, that we were planning to start shoot in May, June actually, is when we were planning to start shoot. Those are going to definitely get affected. They're going to get pushed. So we are still focusing on the designing of it and the writing of it and the developing of it and using all this time to do all that. But at some point, we'll hit a space where, okay, we just have to now wait it out and see when we can shoot. So that's bound to happen. Yeah.
Since we write a lot, I'm taking all this time to nicely write as much as possible, but keeping in mind the fact that quite a few things might have to be redone or redesigned or rewritten to be a little more relevant post-COVID. So it's almost like a pre and post-COVID. Right. So that is something we need to keep in mind. And some couple of subjects are not exciting anymore. Like I had like a dozen ideas, so 3-4 of them don't really make sense because it feels a little off. Yeah. So it's hard to explain it. So those are the things I'm re-looking at and trying to see which makes sense when we're going forward. What should be the first couple of projects, couple of films we should be making.
Right. Well, I suppose we're all going to have to recalibrate and go ahead. But how exciting that y'all quickly sort of jumped into action in a way and found something that and in a sense this is going to be this is going to be forever, right? This is posterity. This is what was created, the art that was created. So can't wait. Yeah. Can't wait to see a viral wedding. All the best, and hopefully we'll see more. But hopefully all this will pass and you will get back to what you're good at, which is those sort of quirky, unusual subjects in the feature film format and in the series format. So all the best. Thank you, Raj. Thank you, DK. Cannot wait to see a viral wedding. Very exciting times indeed. Thank you.
Thanks, Rajeev.
Thank you, Rajeev. Thank you so much for taking the time.